I'd now like to welcome our keynote speakers, Damien and Ray, to the podium to continue the conversation and to present to you today. Please welcome Damien and Ray.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming along to hear Brodie's story. And Jason, where are you? Thank you for organising everything. We've been very well looked after. Can't take him anywhere, honestly. But it's been a long journey for us. We've had some great people behind us that have helped us along the way, and we're very proud to thank you, Safe Work SA, for inviting us here. It's been a really, got Beyond Blue here today. We'll talk a little bit about them within our presentation as well. And also a very special thank you to Michelle Tucky, who sits on our board. I'm very proud to have her on our board. She's an amazing young woman.
Very lucky to have her on board.
Yeah, don't embarrass her. But look, thank you very much for everyone who's given up their time to come along and listen to Brodie's story. We'll play a video first. It'll give you a little bit of insight to about the law and Brodie's story itself.
That we did with the Department of Justice, which is really kind when they did it too. Thank you.
The days go in and out, on and further out. Quietness I always find.
Brodie was a young 19-year-old. She was a beautiful young girl. She was full of life, full of compassion for others. She got herself a part-time job and was moving out of home to live in her own little unit and start a whole new adventure. She was so excited at the time, but sadly, the workplace for Brodie turned out to be a very toxic environment. There was a bullying culture in place. There was no structures or anything like that to protect Brodie or anyone else in that fact. And so for months and months she endured relentless bullying and humiliation, and tragically she ended her life.
Brodie's Law is a law that helps protect vulnerable people. It helps protect victims of bullying, particularly victims of serious bullying. It enables police to take out intervention orders against bullies to stop the bullying behaviour to help protect the victims. It also allows us to conduct criminal investigations and potentially lay charges against the perpetrators of bullying.
It's not something that you should sort of pretend isn't happening. And if you're a victim of it, that you shouldn't feel ashamed of the fact that it's happening to you. It's something that you actually need to address. Because if you don't, you can turn in on yourself and actually cause yourself harm, and it can affect your ability to work and study and relate to other people. It's just ongoing,
Bullying can have a big impact on someone's health, not only physically but also psychologically. So the worry and stress and anxiety experienced by the target who's being bullied, if that's ongoing in the workplace, that can have a major effect on that person's health. Some targets of bullying are reluctant to speak up about bullying. They fear that the bullying will get worse or that they'll be labelled as a troublemaker. Brodie's Law enables those people to go to their local police station and report the bullying there.
No one has the right to continually bully people. In fact, even bully people full stop. Unfortunately, someone had to lose their life for this law to be brought upon us, and I'm 6'4" and 120 odd kilos. It doesn't matter how big you are, it affects a lot of people, and it happened to me.
The message I'd like to give to someone if you're out there and being bullied is please don't sit back and think you're on your own. Please don't think you have to endure all this sort of pain by yourself. Make sure you tell someone about it. There are people there that want to help, Victorian Police, your teachers, your employers. Please don't let it get to and escalate to a stage where you just don't know what to do and you're feeling so bad that it ends up in tragic circumstances.
If people feel they're being bullied, they should make some notes about what's happening. So when they decide to take action, we can get a full picture and what they've been subjected to. They should also talk to a trusted friend or colleague. Tell their manager if it's in a work context, tell a teacher if it's at school. Discuss with someone who they trust, and if they wish to, they can come and report the matter to police. They can certainly ring their local police station and seek advice. Alternatively, and perhaps the best method, is to actually go into the police station, speak to a constable at the counter, make a report and see what the police can do in relation to their particular case.
I think it's very good that we have a law now that backs up the social norm of the fact that bullying isn't acceptable. And I think it's a really good thing subconsciously for people that find themselves in a bullying position, because they know that not only can they go to their friends and their family, but they can actually go to the police and that they would take you seriously. So I would say to people that are finding themselves in a bullying situation that definitely talk to someone. You know, it's not uncommon. Like, we just have to talk about it and you know, take it step by step.
Bullying doesn't stop unless people stand up and are prepared to do something about it. And yes, the laws can be changed and the laws can do this and the courts can do this, but it really does come back to the individuals. Let's try and get it that it doesn't have to go to the courts. Let's do something better than that. Let's look, as Ray said, let's look after our fellow men and women. You know, this is what we're trying to do. We want to make a change, but we can't do it by ourselves. We need your help.
With days going and out, on and further out. Quietness I always find in my heart, in my mind.
Okay, well, my name's Ray, and of course I'm Brodie's mum. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Brodie's story and what led to her tragic death. It really did change our lives forever. Brodie was our only daughter. She grew up with two older brothers. Her eldest brother always says that Brodie was more like a big sister than a little sister. She was always looking out for them. She was full of life, Brodie. She was a compassionate young girl. She's always coming home from school worried about others and what was happening and things like that. She was a very compassionate sort of a kid. She loved her animals. She certainly did a lot in her short life. She was everything from a gumnut guide. She would play footy with her brothers. She had singing lessons. She's involved in everything she could at school. She's a very forward young girl. Actually, we've just had our first granddaughter, who's 19 months old now, and she's so like Rhodes. It's quite funny. Everything she does, she's just such a busy little girl all the time, and she reminds me so much of her in so many ways. It's really nice to have her around. But, you know, Brodie, when she went to secondary school, she was always one of these ones as well that was always worried about other people as well. And as I said, she was a very compassionate young girl. The colour purple, I guess we chose, because there was a time when Brodie wanted her whole bedroom painted purple. Damien had just bought, I don't know, mint green paint, and he said, I'm not painting it purple. It didn't end up purple, but we ended up putting a lot of purple things in there, and to be honest, there's still a lot of purple in there. Her room's much of a muchness, and I've still left the purple in there. You know, it's a really hard situation because I still expect her to come in the door, and the other day I walked down the side of the house, and I know it sounds silly, but I still peek in her bedroom and expect her to be there. The pain never goes away. Brodie had decided that, yeah, I think I'll be a social worker mum because that's where I can really help other people. But for now, I've found myself a full-time job in a busy little cafe in Hawthorn. She got a driver's licence, we bought a little car, and she said, I've even found a little unit. I'm going to get my independence before the boys or anything else. The independence used to make me laugh because every night she'd be home and I'd think, okay, what are you cooking for tea, Mum? Or I'd say, bring your washing home, and come in and there'd be washing everywhere. But that was her idea of her independence. You know, for a short time, everything seemed fine. She seemed happy. As I said, she was home often. She's even still playing local basketball. I went to the cafe on many occasions, and everything seemed okay. No one ever approached me with what was going on in there. And so we just thought everything was okay. But sadly, the workplace that she was in was coroner described it best, it was a very toxic environment. There was already a culture of bullying in place. Nothing to protect Brodie or anyone else. Some young people had already left, and there was a boss there who'd say, take it out the back. He really didn't want to know what was going on. So for months, Brodie was the youngest one there. She put up with a lot of, not just verbal abuse, but there was a lot of physical abuse as well, sexual harassment and many other things as well. She was physically held down by two men who thought it was funny to pour fish oil all over her while she was really distressed. They'd grab her on another occasion, hold her down again, pour beer all over her, kick her, spit on her, say some pretty disgusting things to her. And their attitude was, it's a bit of fun. She's got brothers. Her brothers never would do anything like that. And a boss who would say, take it out the back. We learnt later that she was really distressed. The girls would have to take her, and sometimes she'd just have to go home. They'd buy a new T-shirt or whatever. But she was very distressed about that sort of thing. They'd smear the handles of her car. They'd put things in her handbag. And as I said, the girls tried in their own way, went to the boss, but his attitude was just take it out the back. It went on for months and nothing ever changed. Why Brodie chose never to say anything to us, I really don't know. Keeps me awake a lot at night wondering if I'd missed a conversation or had she said something to... I just never thought this sort of behaviour would ever go on. Towards the end, she didn't want me to come to the place for lunch with that, so I'd pick her up and we'd go somewhere else, but I never thought it would be because of this sort of thing. Her older brother was at uni at the time, just around the corner. He called in on many occasions, especially after work. They'd go out for dinner and that together. They were just bought tickets to go to a concert. You know, she was making forward plans. I said, did she ever say anything to you? He said, no, Mum, we didn't really talk about her work. And he said the night before she tragically took her life, she gave him a really big hug. He said, but I didn't think much more of that because that was Brodie. She's like me. She just loves hugging people. She likes people. So he never thought too much more about that. But sadly, Brodie's mental health was definitely changing. And Lifeline, I guess, explained it that it was a solution in a way for Brodie. She had decided that I'm not going back there anymore. So one night she had decided to end her own life. It was actually he's a young apprentice plumber, wasn't he? Yes. A young guy that was on the scene at the time, and he actually jumped a barbed wire fence, and he went over to Brodie and took off his jacket, and he stayed with her until the ambulance and the police arrived. Be forever grateful to that young man, because as a mum and as a dad, it was nice to think that there was someone there with her at the time.
Good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it would have been pretty hard for him because he was pretty young. Brodie survived for a couple of days in hospital, but as you can imagine, she was in an induced coma. So we didn't know what was going on. When the police said suicide, I thought they were stupid. I thought, suicide? What are we talking about? Why would she commit suicide? It was a word I found very hard to even use for so long. But it was Brodie, and she passed away 2 days later. And it was then that we had 13 witnesses come forward to let us know what had been happening. But of course, by this time, it was far too late. It does show the huge impact that serious bullying can have on someone's state of mental health. It obviously was with Brodie, and I just wish she had opened up some sort of conversation to us, that we would have got an opportunity to sit down and talk it through with her, and actually would have got her out of that place, and we wouldn't have been standing here today. But, you know, it all does come back to respect. You know, but respect's not just about doing the right thing, it's about saying the right thing. Everyone in the workplace felt bad later because they wish they had done more to help Brodie. But with the boss, they were young too. Actually, a lot older than Brodie, most of them. But a boss who would just say, take it out the back, they really found it hard to really deal with. Damien and I have been through a lot of things as well since then, especially with mental health issues. And it's hard, it really is. But just before I go into other things, there was a young boy from actually Bendigo, a young apprentice chef, Stuart, 20 years of age, got his first job as a chef, which was hard to get an apprenticeship in a country town, so he's very proud of himself. He ended up with a lot of workplace bullying as well. This is back before Brodie's case in 2003. And he had a young sister, 16 at the time, who he confided a lot in about his workplace bullying. She was also going through a bit of bullying in the schoolyard as well. And at the young age of 16, she ended her life. And a month later, her brother, Stuart, ended his life at the age of 20. And that was, I just don't know how that family cope either. But because of their death, there was a change to the amendment in the OH&S law of 2004, which now allows psychological issues to be brought into that law, which allowed Brodie's case to be heard within the court and under WorkSafe Victoria. I'll let Damien do a little bit of talking, and then I will come back with a few things later.
What is Brodie's law? I'm Damien, Brodie's dad, and at the time of Brodie's tragic death, bullying in the workplace was dealt with under Occupation Health and Safety 2004, and that's why we talk about those two young people, because without that law coming in, or that Safety Act, we don't know what we would have been able to do with Brodie, because the coroner did say that the only way we can do anything, and they investigated the police and so forth, and we were told that unofficially the police had turned around, detectives, and said that because of suicide, it's too hard. But yet there was violence upon her, males holding her down, and I was told again that she's not here, so she can't testify, and all these sort of stupid things. But because we're going through so much pain and trauma ourselves, you don't push any further, because it was just too hard. So we went with the Safety Act of 2004, and Brodie went through the courts with that. But at the coroner's court, there was one part that really disturbed us, and it was basically, that's when we found out everything about what they'd been doing to Brodie in all detail. And Ray, it was too much for Ray. She was sitting out in the foyer crying all the time with a helper. And there must have been a break of some sort, and two of these individuals, I wouldn't name them because they're not worth it, were walking out, and I was just behind them. And they knew I was just behind them. And what they did is they walked all the way up to where Ray was with this helper sitting down, and me behind them, and did 2 high fives. Yep. And that's a good way of putting it, what they thought about Brodie and the whole thing. They felt that they were being badly done by.
Until they all turned against each other in the courts.
Yeah, well, at that stage, high fives didn't do too much, fine. Lucky there was a lot of police there, because at the time, I don't know what I would have done. Yeah. I'll go into that very quickly. Revenge. That was on my mind. That was on the minds of my sons, and they're not small. But the thing is, if I had have done something, they wouldn't be here, and neither would I. And my family would be destroyed. So what the best way to put this is that what we do here is the positive, and the negative is doing something stupid and destroying our family further. And that's what we do. We come out and talk to you guys, that you can go and talk to other people. And if there's 100 here, you can do 1,000 by just talking to a couple of people, and thousands. And we have tried to change the law in different states, and we do come up against a lot of brick walls, and hopefully we can do a lot more, but we're not going to stop. But the people who did this to Brodie were charged under WorkSafe charges, convicted and fined. It was the highest fines WorkSafe ever had on bullying, $250,000 for the owner, 45 for the manager, 30 for the main waiter. And they were going to give a bond to the cook, who was 23, who was the youngest of the lot. But the judge turned around and said, you had everything to do with what was going on. You spat on her, kicked her, and all the rest of the things. And so instead of a bond, he gave him $10,000 and a conviction. The ironic thing about that too is that that guy didn't care at all, like the rest. He tried to scarper Australia, and he was arrested at the airport with Safe Work and the police. They worked very well together. His attitude was, why should I be going through this, and so forth. But anyway, it showed us that there were obviously limitations in the law, and that's when we started lobbying the Victorian government, both Labor and Liberal, and that's what we did. And we got Robert Clark, who was the Attorney General at the time, to change the law, and the quickest way he could do it was to put on the back of stalking. They really don't know, and Ray will go into it further too, how many convictions there have been in jail terms. They estimate. And there's a video later on too, a later one, that estimates it's tripled since what we've been talking about. But the introduction of Brodie's Law in Victoria sends a clear message that serious bullying is a criminal offence, and sets a monumental stand against it, tolerating bullying anywhere in our community. And it doesn't just have to be Victoria, it's anywhere. It doesn't matter what the law in every state says exactly, but it's just human nature. You do not put someone down. You do not know what someone is going through on a daily basis or coming to work. They've got things going on with them at home or in their workplace or their friendships and so forth. And what does Brodie's Law cover? Well, it covers everything.
Do you want me to do it?
Sorry?
Do you want me to do it? You're right.
I don't mind.
Well, it is all forms of serious bullying, physical bullying, psychological bullying, verbal and cyberbullying. It can be anywhere in our community. It doesn't have to be workplaces, it's schools, it's sporting clubs. Let's face it, bullying can happen anywhere. And of course on the internet with, well, we all know about the internet. Damien and I were talking about some of the young tradies the other day, and we said, well, we didn't have a mobile phone in our day. They must think we're ancient. Oh yeah. And we didn't have a mobile phone, we didn't have a computer. You know, the phone was in the middle of the lounge room where your dad and that all were, so everyone could hear you on the phone, and unless you wanted to go down the phone box and call your boyfriend, that's the only way you could have a personal conversation. So if you were bullied at school or anywhere like that, you thought, oh well, no one's going to bother me till Monday. But now it's 24/7. It's everywhere. And even when, you go in to do young trades, before we set up and that, they're all on their mobile phones, checking message or whatever they're doing. It's just 24/7. And it's become a very nasty way to bully people. This is some stats.
The family of a teenage...
I'm too quick, sorry.
Will you sit down?
I thought you jumped. There we go.
Oh, you thought, honestly.
Lucky I got a backup.
Well, Australian employees said that they've been bullied in the workplace 1 in 10 in the last 6 months. 3,000 plus Victorians were paid work cover payments for bullying and harassment claims in 2016, and I can imagine it's the same everywhere. This goes to show you the amount of money, $36 billion a year, to the economy with healthcare and productivity, things like that. In Victoria, there's been 140 charges to do with bullying. 58 people have been charged. Some people have gone to jail. But, you know, we didn't enact a law in the hope that you're going to catch heaps of bullies and put them in jail. It's the education, it's the awareness, that's the most important thing. But this law does make a difference in Victoria. A lot of people do think about it. There's a lot more things being put in place because of Brodie's law. And some people do feel more confident about going to the police now as well. Next.
The family of a teenager who committed suicide after months of
of
vicious workplace torment has welcomed Victoria's tough new anti-bullying legislation.
In 2006, Brodie Panlock took her own life. She was 19 years old, she'd just started work at a cafe in Hawthorn, and she got bullied by her co-workers. Her parents fought to make a law in her name, making serious bullying a crime punishable by up to 10 years in prison.
Brodie's law was enacted in response to a tragic incident of a young girl at a workplace.
She was working in a cafe, and she loved a new job, and she was only 19 years old.
A daughter to loving parents. She had a brother. If she was still alive today, she'd be a brand new auntie. So there's a young child that's not going to have a loved auntie. And the legislation and all the community interest and the publicity around it has really made workplaces safer. We're seeing more people willing to report to police about cases of serious bullying. In 2016 we had as many offenders charged as we had the previous 5 years, so it's really encouraging.
What sort of bullying have we seen?
It could be physical bullying, it could be cyber bullying, it could be a whole range of things. There's no one way that you can be bullied. If someone is a victim of serious bullying, I'd encourage them to go to their local police station and make a complaint. And the police can provide advice of the best option. Maybe an intervention order to prevent their bullying from continuing. And they'll also assess the seriousness of it to make sure it fits the bill for a criminal offence, and if so they may lay criminal charges. If we can save some lives through the use of this legislation, well that's terrific.
And of course this is put together for us with WorkSafe, as we go out to and do a lot of young people in TAFE. We've about 40 presentations we've got this year with young tradies and TAFEs throughout Victoria. But, it is verbal abuse, it is intimidation and threats, putting people down, spreading rumours about someone, and interfering with someone's personal property or their work equipment. It's unjustified criticism and complaints, deliberately excluding people from work activities, withholding information that's vital for the effect of their performance at work, and setting tasks that are really unreasonable above or below a worker's ability. What's not bullying? Well, constructive feedback's not bullying, delegating work's not bullying, reasonable disciplinary action isn't, and that means reasonable, not yelling and screaming at someone, putting them down or humiliating, making them feel bad. It means reasonable disciplinary action. Justified termination or suspension, management of job performance, one-off incidents are not bullying, setting realistic performance goals, and of course we can all have differences of opinions while we're at work. Oh, thank you. Well, as I said before, it is repeated behaviour, it is unreasonable behaviour, and it is definitely a huge risk to your health and safety. Your mental health is just as important at work or wherever we are as your physical health as well. And there's a lot more done now with your mental health, and we've got Beyond Blue here as well. But it is. I didn't obviously think too much about mental health until after I lost Brodie, and I really went through a bad stage. I fought going on any sort of medication for a long time, but I really could not function. To be honest, when Brodie went, I didn't want to be here either. But thank God I am, and I got onto the right medication, and these sort of things do help. And I've actually been trying to wean off it, but it hasn't been as good as I thought, actually, so back at the doctor's next week. But anyway, that's me. You know, it does have a huge impact on all aspects of our life. You know, your home life, you know, your personal relationships, low self-esteem. Brodie must have been feeling all these sort of things. You know, definitely in her workplace would have been just, I don't know how she even stayed the time that she did. You know, your social life, relationships, it can affect them. Family, friends, there's a lot of areas like that. You know, stress-related claims in the workplace, reduced work. We've got people that even don't even want to go back to work. We've had young apprentices that have had shocking times through their apprenticeships and have actually left. Some of them have found really good apprenticeships. Some of them find it very hard to even want to go back to work. No? Yep. What?
What's up?
Oh, you're so quick. What's in this one?
Oh, sorry, boss.
Here we go. And of course, early warning signs to look out for, and that people do become anxious and apprehensive. You know, as I said, friendships can change, hesitation, a lot of things, your self-confidence, workplace activities, you might not even want to turn up to work, as I've said, and we do have people that physically find it very hard to get up and return back to work. Different behaviour, and of course, self-harm. And we actually do talks on, we have been into like, what do you call them, toolbox talks and things like that. There's a lot of change within the construction industry that put a lot here in Adelaide's Mates in Construction.
Yeah.
That look after a lot of people within construction sites. And in Victoria we have Inkalink as well, and we actually have been told recently we've had several suicides within construction sites, so it's very important to have those talks and those conversations with the inductions and their toolbox talks, where people like Inkalink and Beyond Blue and that give a lot of information, because as Damien said too, we all go through different things. You know, everyone's home life is different. And you come into work and you're dealing with it at work. There just might be something very small that someone says to you, or that just sends you, you think, no, I can't take it anymore. This is what was happening to Brodie. But Damien and I always say, have that conversation. This is what we talk to the young about, having that conversation, and make sure you always talk to someone. There's always someone there that you can open up to. It's like those 3 words, are you okay? You know, someone just putting their arm around you and saying, hey, are you okay?
Smile.
It just may open up. Damien will tell you about the plumber's hug that we've had from some of the young plumbers, but I'm a person that loves a hug more than anything.
Yeah,
and, you know, when you're feeling down and stuff like that, it's really, really nice. And for someone to say, you know, is everything okay? You think, well, no, it's not. I'm glad you asked, because now I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. But it's just, we've got to look out for each other. You know, kindness costs nothing. And it's sad that in our healthcare areas, in our paramedics and our police force, we're having trouble with the fireys down in Melbourne at the moment, with bullying and that going on within the workplace. It happens everywhere.
Politicians.
Yeah, well, they're another one that need to look at themselves and how they talk to each other as well. Damien's going to talk a little bit about bystanders, which there was a lot within Brodie's work area that, as I said, came forward later on and wish they had all done something more.
Well, the easiest way is explain. When I was 15, I started my apprenticeship as a printer. And back then what they used to say, the tradies, was what happened to me is going to happen to you. And that's what happened. What they used to do is the initiations were a plastic bag over your head. I had long hair in those days. I thought I was pretty Jack the Lad, pretty cool. And yeah, I wanted to look after my hair particularly. So plastic bag didn't worry me. And you'd go down to your jocks or your shorts, and the tradies would mix up a brew of solvents and inks and whatever else they thought they could chuck in that bucket, and you were open and they'd throw it all over you. But because everyone else went through it, the apprentices actually saw it before they got it, and it just went on from there. Occasionally an apprentice would jump in and throw stuff over you too, but that's one thing I didn't do. But the people who stood back and watched and did absolutely nothing. It was hard in those days, but now that would be called a bystander. And the same thing, I went over to England for 7 years and I was working in London, and exactly the same thing was happening there. Exactly. And I stood back and watched. I was a bystander again. Didn't want to join in, but it didn't bother me other than that. I look at it now and it's not on. That is against the law as far as I'm concerned. You're assaulting someone. That's something that, I can get back to Brodie. They physically assaulted her, but yet the police just thought, nah, we don't want to get involved in this one. That's another reason why we got the law changed. But there's so much to be done, and with that, what do we need to do? We need to get out there and do more of these talks. We have to get more people behind it. We have to make sure that all our, what would you say, people in government, state government, federal government, start to talk about these things and realise that it's going on. There's over 3,162 suicides every year. Now, I know it's a disgusting way to put it, but do you compare that to the people on the road who die and the money that's thrown into that? That's not good, but why aren't we putting more into mental health? What they did to Brodie, and this I'll say to everyone in this room and myself, she got broken. They broke her. And there's not one person in this room, including myself, that cannot be broken. And that's what it's all about. You can break someone. And we've all got different levels. And some people, it'll go over their head if you say something stupid. But it could hurt someone else who's going through a trauma or whatever they're going through in their life, and it hits them. And if it's continuous, in Victoria, that's a criminal offence of 10 years jail up to. And there have been a lot of people going to jail, but that's far too late. Like Ray said, there's over 60 plus, and then that Murray Fraser, who's a really good friend of ours, and he's done a lot of work for us too, gone out of his way, superintendent. But sometimes, and I think when I was in England, I learnt this word, the law is an ass. And a lot of things go past, which we can't understand. And one big thing to me is that looking after each other. Why can't we do it? There's one particular thing that we did at one of the TAFEs, and it was an ex-electrician. He did for 2 or 3 years, and he had so many problems in that job as an apprentice. He changed to being a plumber. And he's in his first year, and he was about 25. And we asked him how he was going and all that sort of stuff, and he said, it was really bad before, but this is fantastic where I am now. I've got 10 other younger people, as well as myself as bosses and so forth, plumbers, and every morning we have a group hug. And if we have a really bad day and we come back in at lunchtime or in the evening, we have another hug. So we all sit home confident that everyone's got their back.
It's nice. That's cute.
Now, we call it the plumber hug. And I'll tell you what, it's weird.
Breaks down barriers.
It's weird. It breaks down so many barriers. Because we did a talk in the Melbourne Magistrates Court, of all things, number 13 court.
After 2 suicides of magistrates.
Yes. You don't hear about it, do you?
No.
Then there's another one this year in the Melbourne courts.
Coroners.
And there was one judge there, very stern face, like looking at a brick wall type of thing, basically, lady. And I went up to her after I'd given the hug business. I said, how about a plumber?
Hug.
She just went, woof. So, and a smile, mate. This is what we try to get over young people more so, is what's wrong with just smiling at someone and just saying, are you okay? That's a fantastic way of putting it.
Because actually, he was sleeping, but I was watching
What?
we was trying to watch telly last night. You kept telling us.
Ambos, mate.
No, I was watching paramedics. I just
She loves
really
it.
do like those shows. I'm just amazed at the work that they do. And ambulance guy was there saying that, you know, in his particular job that had a very hard case, he said you need a lot of laughter and you need a lot of TLC and being able to relate to people. And I thought, yeah, that's true. It is. It's not about, got to stop thinking about profit before people and start thinking more about each other. I know we all get time poor and we've all got so many things to do and budget and whatever goes on, but sometimes you just need to take a step back and look around you and really, it's about changing a whole cultural change and making it a much more a culture that's caring. And I don't think there's anything wrong with giving people a hug at work or anywhere else. I know some places are funny about all that sort of thing, but no, I'm old-fashioned in that way, and I sometimes think a hug can go a long way. So the plumber's hug was, and he stood up in front of all, and ended that particular session. They're all plumbers, they're all giving each other a hug, and so it was actually nice. I don't know whether I should have said it was cute to them, though. They probably thought, but anyway.
Well, cute blokes hugging each other.
Yeah, it was
that's all right.
cute. I thought it was nice. What responsibilities does the workplace have? Well, of course, we all know your health, physical and mental, is very important. You need adequate supervision and instruction. You have informed inductions in that, especially when the young tradies start work. Information and training that's necessary for the workers to do their work safely. You know, consultation with any employee who's elected as a health and safety rep. You know, employer does have a legal obligation and a responsibility under OH&S Act of 2004 to provide a safe and a bully-free workplace. Safe environment, of course. Oh, there is there.
Next.
No, I haven't finished. An employer must, so far as reasonable practice, provide and maintain employees and employers in a work environment that is safe and without risks to health, and that includes your mental health and that as well. Okay. And of course in Victoria, which should be the same in SA, you know, WorkSafe in there provides information and resources, inspecting workplaces and issuing notices. And of course in Victoria, Damien and I do a bit of work with WorkSafe, which allows us to get out to the TAFEs. We do about 40 presentations in the TAFEs with young tradies, and they do have an actual psychological bullying unit. They've got about 13 inspectors in there, and that's all they deal with is just workplace bullying. And actually they're very busy. Okay. Oh, of course, this is WorkSafe Victoria.
No one should be bullied at work. Bullying is anything from verbal abuse to intimidation and threats, withholding information essential to someone's job, interfering with someone's property, or making someone feel excluded. It's not bullying to inform an employee of poor work performance, to not select an employee for promotion, or to have a difference of opinion. Preventing bullying starts with recognising it. If you're experiencing or witnessing bullying at work, speak to someone such as your manager, health and safety representative or union representative, and report the issue if you're comfortable doing so, because your health and well-being is important. If you're unsure how to proceed with a bullying issue, the WorkSafe Victoria Advisory Service can guide you. Where appropriate, WorkSafe may refer the matter to one of its inspectors, who will gather information and assess whether your employer has complied with occupational health and safety law. If bullying is occurring, the inspector can ensure your employer takes steps to prevent and manage it, and may issue an improvement notice if necessary. For immediate emotional support, Beyond Blue or Lifeline is there to help. Or contact your employer's Employee Assistance Program. Contact Victoria Police if it's a matter involving physical or sexual assault or property damage. The Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission, the Fair Work Commission, trade unions and industry associations may also provide guidance. If you believe you're experiencing bullying in the workplace, WorkSafe's advisory service and other agencies can help. Find out more at www.worksafe.vic.gov.au.
Another one for you guys.
Victorian employers have a responsibility under occupational health and safety law to provide a physically and psychologically safe workplace. Part of that is ensuring that bullying cannot occur there. Bullying can be anything from repeated verbal abuse to intimidation, threats, or exclusion. It's not bullying to inform an employee of poor work performance, to not select an employee for a promotion, or to have a difference of opinion. Early intervention is encouraged, such as having management intervene in the situation before it escalates to repeated incidents. If the matter is unresolved, WorkSafe can provide guidance. Its role is to ensure employers are preventing and managing bullying in compliance with occupational health and safety law. In responding to a bullying complaint, an inspector may interview employees and collect information relevant to the bullying allegations, such as workplace policies, training records and incident records, as well as reviewing the employer's response to allegations. The inspector may issue an improvement notice or refer the matter for further investigation. For guidance on how to prevent or respond to workplace bullying, visit worksafe.vic.gov.au. You'll also find a list of other organisations that can assist with bullying prevention and response.
Okay.
Well, this is just a little bit put together for creating a positive and respectable workplace. You know, information and consistent policies and procedures. It's no use having all these things in place if they're stuck out the back or no one knows about them. Very important to have mandatory training in bullying and harassment at all levels. Strategies in place for effective and early intervention of workplace conflicts so it never ends up in courts or people taking time off work through stress and mental health issues. Leadership groups are important. Reporting, feeling safe to report bullying. We have that a lot with young tradies, and they say, oh, you know, I don't really want to say anything about it. I don't want to lose my job. We had a case like that a few weeks ago. A young guy came up and said that, you know, we've got a young person being bullied at work, but we're scared to say something about it because we don't want to lose our job. They really didn't know where to go. So we've spoken to his teachers and helped out. He'll go off to WorkSafe and that to find out what he can do to help with that workplace.
On the roof.
Yeah, and another one, you know, a young roofing plumber up on the roof has a medical certificate that he needs to go to the toilet. He's up on a roof and they won't let him off the roof to go to the toilet. Pull the ladder away. These things are just so wrong. You know, I just don't understand how a boss who's in charge of young apprentices can even think that sort of thing. Anyway, that'll be being looked at as well. And of course, mental health awareness. We all need to know about mental health awareness. It is so important. I've never realised so much since Brodie's death how important mental health really is, that we all get to know about it and that we're able to give some sort of support to someone who's going through that sort of thing. Next.
Oh.
This is just something that we actually give out to the young tradies that we're in TAFE about, just problems about if you've been bullied, you'd all have the same sort of thing here in South Australia. You know, of course in Victoria, if you've got it, it can become a police matter. We all know about, well, if it's unfair performance, now we've got the Fair Work Ombudsman. Discrimination, well, we've got the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights. And of course, if you're struggling with emotions or feeling down, then it becomes Lifeline and Beyond Blue, who are always there to help you. And of course, if you're being sacked unfairly, then it becomes, well, Fair Work Australia. Next.
Well, that's
we
what
don't
we
need
give out
it.
to the kids.
Yeah,
in
but
Victoria,
this is really Victorian.
which is the same thing as that.
Yeah, but it's all
And
there.
their little pocket.
Yeah, which does help the kids.
Yeah.
They keep them in their wallets and know areas that they can go to get help. Next. Next. But, you know, it does show after hearing this presentation, it really does, bullying can have a huge impact on all aspects of your life. You know, Brodie's Law in Victoria does protect against workplace bullying. We're fortunate enough while we were up here that through Safe Work SA have organised a meeting with, was it Rob Lucas, who will be going to speak with, due to the young girl Livy Bell, who took her own life at the age of 13, and her family have been trying to get a law similar to Brodie's law put through here. I'm not sure what's happening with it at the moment, but we will be sitting down speaking to him and just letting him see how Brodie's Law does work in Victoria. So very thank you for giving us that opportunity to talk to that.
Organised by WorkSafe.
Don't be a bystander. If you know something's going on, report it to someone you know that can help. There's always someone there. Just remember the workplace does have responsibilities for you. And no matter what the problem is, there's always somewhere you can go and talk. Even if it's a trusted friend, your local GP, there's so many areas you can go to with, you know, the work that Beyond Blue and Lifeline, like, dude, there's always someone. Don't ever, ever think you're on your own. That conversation can be such a lifesaver. So make sure that and just look out for each other. As I said, a hug goes a long way. Kindness costs nothing. You know, there's so many areas that we can help each other, but it is about, you know, caring for each other. It's I can't say any more than that, but thank you so much for listening to Brodie's story. No matter how many times I do this presentation, I still think she's here. It's just a strange feeling. I'll never, ever get over losing her, but this sort of thing, getting any, and if someone takes something small away from this, then it means a lot to us. So thank you so much, everyone. I really do appreciate it.
Hang on, you're finishing. I'm just
I'm
beginning.
putting you off because you're annoying.
Well, just a short one with information on our website. There's more information there that you can actually look at, and if you need to, how would I put it? Ask your politicians why haven't we got this law in South Australia? There's more information with our Department of Justice on our website. It tells you a lot more about what Brodie's Law is fully about and what we went through to do the law and how we went about it. Also, obviously, Lifeline. We started off with Lifeline. They did all the actual talks with, or put us out in a sort of a run around all the different country from Shepparton down to Geelong and in between. And this is something that, you know, just shows you that what can happen to anyone. David Sports, I don't know how many people follow footy, but once you're about 6'4",
Adelaide, Crows and Port Adelaide.
yeah, I know Adelaide, mate. But David Sports, fantastic footballer. He's Melbourne. How many Melbourne supporters? 2. There, we're out. Kick them out. Anyway, long story short, he is 6'4", 120 kg plus. I know you'd say only. Yeah. And wonderful guy, beautiful family, and his family and himself were bullied and stalked. And that's how we met him. He used Brodie's Law and put this particular person away for a short time. And that just shows you it doesn't matter how big, small, how indifferent you are, it can happen to anyone. And I had bullying when I was an apprentice. And this is not a funny one actually, the first people that we talked to on a worksite, we said, how do you sort out your problems? We take it out the back. That's not on. And they're changing in big time.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and it's like we said, there's Machen's Construction and there's actually...
doing a job on the sites and everything as well.
And unfortunately, it all comes back to a lot to mental health. The prisons are half full of people, unfortunately, that have not got a full life because of mental health.
Yeah, so we've really, really got to look out for mental health.
But we thank you all for being so patient. And like I said, if you need more information, look up our web, please.
I guess by now you know we're just a mum and a dad. We're not professionals. That's what we get the message.
And we don't want to be.
No, we just does. So it really meant a lot that you're all here today. Thank you.
I'm all about the hugs myself. Massive gratitude to you both, Damien and Ray, for sharing that very powerful, very personal and extremely moving story this morning. If you're anything like me, quite a mixture of emotions, I'm sure, went through this room as we heard that story. We have got the opportunity of about 12 minutes to ask questions directly to Damien and Ray. We've got a couple of roving mics that we can bring to you. So can you just raise your hand and one of our assistants will bring the mic straight over to you. Thank you.
Hi. I think one of the resistances from the other states is probably, from what I understand it, is that the making it a crime raises the burden of proof up to beyond reasonable doubt. And so there's, I suppose, scepticism about whether that's actually going to reduce the rate of bullying, whether it's going to minimise the rate of bullying.
It's not always easy. I understand where you're coming from. But I guess in Victoria, if you saw the one with the police, we do have a lot more people that are more confident to go to the police and talk about it more.
Restraining orders?
Your intervention orders and things like that. But at the end of the day, as I said, we didn't enact the law in the hope that we're just going to catch heaps of, we hope that it sends a clear message that if you do step over that line and you do engage in behaviour where someone takes their own life, then it does become a criminal offence. I guess it's like all laws like that. We're not talking about young people going to jail or anything like that. We've actually got a couple of issues in Victoria at the moment with young people. There's some really nasty bullying going on. They're all about 15. They're this close to being charged, but
Tuesday.
We're actually going on Tuesday. The police are going to sit down with these kids. We're going to sit down with them. We hope with their parents and hope that we can resolve it, because that at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, they need to know. Yep, there is a criminal law. It is not, because
Otherwise
people just
they will
take
be
bullying.
charged, and that's what we don't want.
This is what the police are talking. They're this close to being charged, so we really don't want that to, because they're so young. We just like to think that the education, the awareness, and that talking to them will help. It's just like the young girl here, Libby Bell. You know, she's 13 years of age. It's just sometimes these things just, I don't understand them. But so I guess in one way, yes, the law does work in Victoria, and I'd like to see it in every state across Australia, that they know that if you step over that line, then yep, it can become a criminal offence.
But it's really education. I think you're talking about young people from 10 upwards. It's got to be education, and that's what we're going to be doing with these police, and that's what they came to us and asked us to do something about it, because they don't want to charge them. That brings up a precedent then after that what do you do? Oh, we'll just charge them. No. I think we've got common sense across Australia that we need to actually educate our children and parents that it's not on. It's not okay, it's not on, full stop. And I think that it all comes back to education, really. We all need a bit of education in what we do every day of the week. And it doesn't hurt just to listen and react sensibly.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was easy.
Now she's gone quiet.
That's an auction. Well, thank you again anyway. And hopefully when we do our sit down, you have more questions as well. There's a lot smarter people with us than
Yes,
us,
Michelle.
should I say.
Thanks again, Damien and Ray. There will be another opportunity, because as you'll hear from our next two speakers, you may have other questions that you want to raise. So we'll bring Damien and Ray up on stage along with our next two presenters for a bit of a Q&A session. So you haven't missed out.